Hi, everyone. That works. Okay, welcome to our session, MOOCs for Companies. I take it very briefly. In a nutshell, the main objective of this session is to discuss how to leverage the potential of MOOCs. And for this, we gathered quite a great panel of speakers who come from very different backgrounds and will speak from their own stakeholders' perspectives. I quickly introduce all of you. We have Christian Friedl, and he is a lecturer and researcher at the JOANNEUM, University of Applied Studies in Graz. And he is also project manager of the MOOC project, and that is a European Knowledge Alliance that works on the MOOC book, which you will talk about later. Then we have Francesca Bonadei, and she is the executive educator and in charge of the publishing program at Verlag Italia. And she's also in charge of the MOOCs that they produce. And she will speak from a publishing perspective. Then we have Sasha Norkin. Welcome to the panel. She is the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for edX. And today she will present findings and present data from a case study with Microsoft. So she will speak from the MOOC provider's perspective. Then we have with us today Monika Hamori. And she's Professor of Human Resource Management at the IE Business School in Madrid. And her research focuses on career paths and career success. And today she will present survey data on how employers use MOOCs for their professional skill development. So here we have the employer's perspective. And finally, I would like to welcome Valli Rajagopal. And she's the head of learning at ACCA, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. And Valli will present insights on the transferability of learnings to the workplace, and thus also the improvement of employability of the learners. Last but not least, I would like to welcome you, the audience, and we would also like you to participate in our discussion that we will have later on. So please use this hashtag if you have any questions already during the presentations, and we will collect them on a Twitter wall later. But of course, you will also have the chance to speak into a microphone if you prefer that later. And we designed the session to start with a keynote, then have short presentations of all the panelists, and then jump into the panel discussion in the end. Okay, let's start. The stage is yours, Christian.
Well, thank you very much, Karina, for introducing me. It's an honor for me to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Christian. And yeah, I'm lecturing and researching in the field of entrepreneurship, business modeling, project management, so I'm not an educational expert. But being interested in trends and also educational trends all the time, I came across MOOCs quite early, so I think about 7 years already. And as we are a University of Applied Science with a name nobody can pronounce, we have to work very closely with industry. So I have a lot of industry colleagues and partners, and I always keep wondering, why are not companies using MOOCs stronger? Why don't they apply them? And I kept asking my company colleagues, why not? And I received the same questions all the time back, counter questions. The first one, what the hell are MOOCs? But after clarifying that, it came down to the same questions all the time. So are they really for free? Are there any additional costs we should think of? Also, what topics are on offer? And where can I find those topics? And once I found the topics, how to measure the quality of the courses. And then also from the employee's perspective, very straight, will I get a better job when I have done a certain MOOC? And to the companies, to the people who are recruiting, do they know about MOOCs? So on the other hand, can MOOCs also be used as a recruitment tool? So many questions. Of course, what about data security, confidentiality issues, legal issues, technical things? So a lot of questions circulating around my head for, I would say years. So at some point I thought, let's do some research here because there's obviously a demand. And as I'm not stupid, I didn't want to do that alone, so I need to find partners. And two of them are sitting here, two bright guys. Darko Jansen, I think you know them, at least I think that was my impression after the first day, everybody knows him at this conference. And also Thomas here. So I found partners, and also it's always very hard without too much resources to these large research endeavors. So for that reason also, not only Darko and Tom liked the idea, also the European Commission, fortunately. So we were able to receive some funding to do a research project which is called BizMOOC, a knowledge alliance with a very long and complex name. You can narrow it down to MOOCs for the world of business. And as you can see, we have 11 partners from 10 countries. So it's a mix between universities and companies, because we want to get all the perspectives also in our research, and we need to have the target groups within our consortium to find appropriate answers to the questions raised. Yeah, as already introduced by Karina, I would like to present today the first core result of our project, the so-called MOOC Book, which is rather a traditional book, but more than an online resource where you can find guidelines, where you can find discussion papers, and so on and so forth. And this MOOC book, we just published the version 1.0, so it's work in progress, is based on research which we have done in the first phase of that project. So first of all, we did want to get an overview about the status quo, so we were collecting discussion papers in interdisciplinary teams between universities and companies to so-called hot topics in that regard. And building on that, we were carrying out more than 100 qualitative interviews with companies and also European organizations, universities, and so on, to get more information about the barriers, the benefits, the obstacles companies are facing and why they're not applying MOOCs to a larger extent yet. To also get the learner's perspective, the workforce themselves, we also carried out an open survey. We thankfully received almost 1,200 responses. And based on all this research, we were elaborating 3 needs and gaps reports, one to different target groups. So one is for companies, organizations, another one is for universities. We were putting a focus on Eastern Europe. At the time of carrying out the research, there were not too many MOOC activities recognized in that area. And also we want to engage with the workforce, with the learners themselves. Yeah, so I only have a very short keynote, so I cannot go into detail. However, I will just give you a snapshot of the research, like a subsample, where we dealt with the issue of MOOCs for the world of business. And we were asking questions in different categories. So first of all, we wanted to know, do companies know about MOOCs? Are they aware of that? Second, are they already engaged in online training or even in MOOC activities? Next, we wanted to know about their expectations, the reasons, the benefits, and also the barriers. Why not engaging more with MOOCs, or even? And last but not least, we thought it's interesting to find out if companies might be interested in teaming up with universities, for example, and collaborating, or also with MOOC platforms, whatever, in realizing MOOC activities. You can find all the results on the MOOC book. It's published with an open license, so you can download all the reports. You can also read them online. You can also comment them. I come to that later. Only some key findings. The first of all, we were a bit surprised that the level of familiarity of European companies with the MOOC concept is rather low still. And yeah, for example, the majority of the companies we were interviewing, they were doing online learning since many years. Still, 42% of the sample we had in our interviews did not know about the word MOOC or the concept at all before, which is for us surprising. And if you heard the keynotes today in the morning and also the presentations, for example, by FUN or other MOOC platforms, there are already a lot of companies on those platforms and a lot of employees and employers. So there's already some activity going on, but at least in our subsample in Europe, we recognized there's huge potential still there. After clarifying what MOOCs are, we also elaborated a little bit on The main benefits MOOCs could be, of course, the first thing is human resource development, including onboarding, but also not reduced to that, so it can also be used in customer training, marketing, or as a recruitment tool, so this is not so surprising. I think the next thing is also similar to the current developments in higher education. MOOCs for companies are very interesting as a complementary tool to existing offline and online training measures. So of course MOOCs cannot replace them, but they can use very beneficial as a complementary tool. The next thing are high expectations. So once they know about MOOCs, they had really high expectations, so they could solve all of the problems. I remember one quote of one interviewee especially. He told me, look, e-learning has been sold to us many times before, it's not new, and every time it has been sold to us, it was promised as the new big savior, it will solve all our problems. And now, when we introduce MOOCs, we have to be very careful also with regards to expectations we're going to raise for companies, because there are not many chances we should miss from now on. So we have to be very careful in that expectation. And you can see there are expectations in almost every field. So they want to save costs, the quality should be very high, should up-to-date knowledge. We're speaking about providing new competencies with MOOCs. It should even improve employee retention rates. It should be flexible. Of course, some of those issues can be solved by MOOCs, of course, but we cannot solve all of them. So we have to be very realistic here. Yeah, at last, there are many unsolved questions. So if you come back to the first slide where I raised those questions, you can add to them a lot of different ones with regards to legal limitations, the unawareness, so also companies are not experienced with that new format. So the lack of experience might be a barrier. And very basic things like technical issues, even a firewall, a company firewall can be a barrier for employing MOOCs in companies. So it starts from very, let's put it like easy to solve problems up to really difficult working council issues and legal limitations which we are facing here. Yeah, so if you want to find out more, here on the right side, you can see the current menu of the MOOC book. We are adding here also good practices, recommendations in the course of the project. Already you can find the summary reports to the research, to the different target groups. You can also find the state-of-the-art papers we were producing, to so-called hot topics, at least hot topics in our perspective. And building on that, we are developing guidelines, and they're already available. So what we did is we tried to identify the most urgent questions as outcomes of the interviews and the research we've done. And we tried to find answers also. We tried to find the right questions. We tried to find the way, how they are asked, if it's asked in the correct way. And also we tried to find potential answers. So I just give you an insight for the business guidelines because they are the most relevant in that session here. We grouped them in two large categories. The one is businesses apply MOOCs from external providers, which means, okay, they're searching what is on offer, which can we use, integrate in our current learning system or whatever, or human resource development system. Second thing is maybe a business want to produce their own MOOCs. We are speaking here about multinational companies with employees in many countries around the world. MOOCs can be scalable. They could be a very efficient and powerful tool in that regard. On the other hand, maybe we speak about a small and medium-sized enterprise. They don't have the means and the money to finance their own human resource development division or even lifelong learning program, whatever. So also for them, MOOCs could be a very important supporting tool when it comes to educating their employees. So what we did in the first step is we tried to find all the questions. And of course, we couldn't find all of them, I'm sure. We can do better, but I think it's a good starting point. And currently only for business we have 31 guiding questions and also answers. And now they're published free and open, so feel free to use them, read them, whatever. And now comes a very strong invitation from my side because we would like to get your expertise as well, and we want to invite you to become co-creators of that, because I told you it's just the version 1.0, we just published it. And there will be a version 2.0 coming. And we want you and your expertise to become co-creators of this European free resource, which should benefit all of us in the end of the day. And give you a quick outlook how you can do that. It's pretty simple. Just go on the website, select the select the relevant chapter you would like to have a look at, and then you can pretty much comment every paragraph you think, okay, this is interesting, or maybe that question is missing, or I think that question should be put the other way around, or the answer to that question is not sufficient in my regard, or I have new resources, new publications, which could also help to give a better answer to that question. But not only for the guidelines, you can also do the same for the reports. Maybe there's some interesting findings, maybe you don't understand one conclusion we were drawing, whatever. We would like you to engage with us, and you should just click on the relevant chapter. There is a plus symbol appearing next to it, so you just click on that and you can post your comment. You don't need to register. However, if you register with an email address, it's much easier to stay in contact with you for us. Yeah, so that's it. So together with you, we want to create a 21st century open learning resource for Europe. And we are going to publish the MOOC Book 2.0, where we try to integrate all the feedback we are hopefully receiving from the open community and the experts from all around the world. And yeah, I can only say we can't wait to connect with you. Muchas gracias por su atención. Vielen Dank. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to the other contribution and questions.
Good morning. Okay, is it working? Okay, so good morning. Thank you for being here. I am Francesca Bonadei. I am executive editor for Springer. I have been working for the Italian office in Milan for about 20 years. I am responsible for the programs in mathematics and statistics for Southern Europe, and I also responsible for the MOOC project with Springer. Just a few words on the company. Springer is a scientific, technological and medical publisher. It's active since some years ago, so we are celebrating just this year our anniversary, as you can see. 2 years ago, we merged with the Nature Publishing Group with Palgrave and Macmillan, thus becoming the leading scientific publisher with a global reach, able to offer high-quality content through innovative services and products. Which is our approach to MOOCs. I will briefly explain how we produce and use MOOCs for internal education and also for external professional educations, and which is our approach and our cooperation with authors, universities and readers, and which is our policy, for which I am personally responsible for. I will also mention a unique cooperation which has just been signed together with Federico II di Napoli, the university, one of the most important and prestigious university in Italy. And I will mention this unique project. Well, very quickly, you all know that there are two main MOOC concepts, the one which is based on open approach and the other one which is focused on the teacher-generated content. These two concepts, the C-MOOCs and the X-MOOCs, have been developed in the years, and we have now many different variants. These are just a few among a long list of variants. And what we do in Springer is basically focusing on the so-called corporate MOOC, which are usually based on rapid learning. They include the short videos, and they are used in industrial training, where we in Springer and in Nature, Palgrave and Macmillan, we have developed a new variant, let's say, a new development of these corporate MOOCs. Corporate MOOCs, which are used for internal training, like this, which are developed by Springer Nature, and these are addressed to all the employees within Springer Nature. But we also used for internal training MOOCs which are produced by third parties. And then we have, under the big Springer Nature umbrella, many brands which produce corporate MOOCs for external partners. This is just an example of a MOOC on MOOCs, which I have created for internal training. And this is the example of how external education courses work. There are basically three main actors in this kind of cooperation. The university, on the one hand, which owns knowledge. The industry, which has the need to train their employers, which has a need in a specific area, chemistry or computer science or healthcare, and they also have the possibility to sponsor the creation of a MOOC. And Springer is a link between these two different words. So what we do is to create a bridge and to develop MOOCs together with the help of the university and offering these MOOCs to the industry. Maybe I will go into details later if you have questions. Now I will just give you a very general overview with some examples. One example is a Springer campus. The idea is quite old because it was initiated in 1997, and the idea was to develop focused courses with the help of lecturers from the University of Mainz, and the courses were offered to employers at Bayer. We have further developed this format, and now the format is both made of physical and personal meetings together with videos, social learning and bar camps, so just mirroring the typical MOOC structure, integrating flipped classrooms and so on. So at the end of 4 years, so it's not really rapid learning, but employers, they are already employed with the company, and they can have a degree. So here is an example of a combination of the traditional Springer content with the new learning format. Another example is in German language. It's Springer Medizin. Oh God, sorry. Where is the arrow? Okay, so it's developed by Springer Medizin, which is a brand of Springer in German language, and it's one of the major CME providers in Germany. And this is for continuous medical education. Then we also have the sisters and brothers Macmillan, Palgrave and Nature group examples. One is the Skill for Studies campus, which is addressed to students who can customize their own course, and they can improve their techniques so as to retain knowledge and so to make the best possible experience out of their courses at the university. Then we also have a very prestigious project, quite new, which is developed by Nature. Here this kind of MOOC is addressed to researchers who work at the university and the need to publish in impact factor journals. So how to be successful? There are courses which are provided by Nature editors, so editors-in-chief and editors who work for Nature journals, and they provide online courses, but they also give the possibility to meet personally with the researchers at the institutions. So these kind of courses are provided via the libraries, so via the institutions. And then from an editorial, from a publishing perspective, we also partner with platform providers and above all with the universities, students, lecturers and book authors. At the Springer page, at the following link, you can find the whole description of our policy. You can also find related content. We have very recently started a new series dedicated to online learning, to MOOCs. So you can find many information here. In 2 words, how is this policy working? A book author, a Springer book author or a lecturer contacts Springer because he's already running a course with his university. So what we do is offering his book to the registered students, so not just to students affiliated to his university, but to any students who will register to the MOOC. We offer his book at a discounted rate. When I say discount, it's a very strong discount, not in 20%, it's about 80% of discount on the price list. And considering the prices of Springer books, it's something attracting. But besides this, which is basically a sales model, what we also do is trying to cooperate with the universities in order to create new content. And here is an example with one of the Europe's largest providers of courses. This is the so-called MOOCs and Books initiatives. What we do here is inviting top-level researchers, not just Italian, of course, because the project is in English language. And we have started, just to make an example, from ERC winners. We invite them both to publish a MOOC with the university and to publish a book with the Springer. Here, the innovative thing is that the textbook is not a traditional textbook. It is something enhanced, let's say. So it will have just a box with a few words on the theory, and then it will have a lot of exercises and solutions which are linked back to the MOOC. It will have links that go back to refer to the videos on the MOOC, and it will also have augmented reality. Even if this is a project that has just been signed, we are already working concretely with Professor Bruno Siciliano. He's from the University of Naples Federico II. He has already published a MOOC with the Federica Web Learning, which is the name of the online university, and he has published a book with a Springer on robotics. This is something that already exists. What we are doing with Professor Siciliano is to develop a new MOOC, and this will be developed by the university, by Federica Web Learning, and we are also building the textbook. The textbook, as already said, will have augmented reality, and this means that in the books there will be the chance to see videos and to interact not just from the computer but also from the mobile. There will be an app that is possible to download and to launch and use using the QR code that will be printed in the textbook. And once the app is downloaded and launched, you just pass your mobile on some signs, special signs which are printed on the book, and the video will start. So this is a new innovative project that we are going to develop, and well, that we hope that will be useful for authors and also for students who are used to use their mobile 24 hours a day in their daily life. Okay, that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Sasha from edX, and what I want to talk about is how edX, which is a nonprofit open source MOOC platform and provider, can help create success for companies. Now, it used to be, it was pretty easy, like for companies to train people, like, did you tighten the screw? Yeah, tighten the screw. Is it tight? Yep, got it. So very well defined, easy to do. Now, you know, it's like you not only need to know how to tighten the screw, you need to think of where the screw is going, you need to lead a team to tighten the screw. It's not even a screw, it's a virtual screw. Oh, my nut. Oh, sorry. Anyway, so the problem is the jobs are changing rapidly. They're not the same today as they are tomorrow, and the jobs themselves are harder to train for. And there's also a huge gap in jobs that are most important. So this is really no surprise, right? There's a big and growing gap in computer science professionals. And the jobs are going unfilled. There aren't enough high school teachers. There are not enough grads. There's just, no one is filling this gap. And companies have a problem too. They don't know how to deal with this. They'd like to invest in reskilling current employees. They'd like to do that, but they're not sure how to do it. They think about short-term workers, apprenticeships, foreign talent. But you know, there are resource constraints. The HR department is busy doing lunches. You know, they've got a lot of other important things on their minds. So not very many people are confident that even with all these strategies they come up with, are going to be suitable, and a majority of them think that workforce planning is really a key leadership priority. So what did we do? We worked with one of our corporate partners, who's Microsoft, and they're facing this, as all companies are. How do they get enough employees into the jobs that are changing? How do they upskill their current employees? How do they go from the methods of the past of teaching, which was probably bringing people together in a room like this, having someone like me talk to them, people, you know, do the things on the computers, very expensive, bring people in, and they may have had great results, but it's really expensive to bring people in a multinational corporation to different places. And what could they do differently? Now there's something called, what's that thing that's called? I think the internet, right? So the internet could make learning different. And I know from your presentation that, you know, people are worried about promises that don't come true. And how do they really know that this works? So Microsoft worked with us to really test what might be successful. And what they struggled with it wasn't just one course, because you can't become, for example, a data scientist by taking one course. Just, you know, can't do it. So they wanted to think of a way to put together a sequence of courses for a variety of knowledge, not just, for example, the coding, but the analysis, leadership, teamwork, so a variety of things around that. Classroom instruction was the way they did it. They'd done it for a long time, it was successful, but could they do it in a new way? So they put together this very complicated sequence of courses. So they had an orientation, they had fundamentals, they had core data science, they had applied, and a project at the end that would lead to this certificate. So very, very rigorous, very you know, deep learning. And I'm not going to read all these demographics, but they had about 800 people who took the course, the sequence of courses. There was no like prize at the end. These were Microsoft employees. They wanted to test whether they could do this, and you know, these were, most had bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, so they wanted to try this out. So what was the result? Success, okay. So with instructor-led training, when you're in this room and there's, did you do that test? Did you get it? Yeah. So 100% completion. They have videos on their site, online tutorials that they send people to learn things like data science. Like, could you go watch all those videos and then you'll learn to be a data scientist? 4% completion rate. When they did just kind of a regular MOOC that got lots of people in it, that was the completion rate. With this pilot, 30%. So pretty impressive numbers in this pilot test. And it's a sequence too. So that's even more impressive. So how did they do that? So they leveraged some of the things that we've learned on edX and that we have on the edX platform. So this is 6x times the average MOOC, 7 times online video tutorials. So video tutorials like on Lynda or something like that where you're just watching a video. So what led to the success? So part of it is how the course is structured and how they're using the tools that the edX platform provides. So we knew before from some prior research we'd done on edX that video length is important. So not surprisingly, shorter videos get more views, but you can't just do a lot of short videos by themselves. That's not a solution. So Microsoft is calling this the DNA of a course, which is kind of interesting. And the green is videos, and the colors are a little hard to see. The brown, the dark brown, are problems. And the yellow is kind of course content text. And what you'll notice here is that the ones that have the highest completion rate, other than the first one, are these ones that are little layers, right? So it's video, text, problem, video, text, problem, video, text, problem. So that, or text, video, problem, but it's basically making sure you have a cadence of short video, and then the text could either before or after, and then a problem that kind of solidifies that learning. So they're working toward kind of honing this, but it really is the first time, you know, that I've seen and that Microsoft has seen, and they were very excited about seeing actually how different courses and their structure could result in different completion rates. What else led to success? It wasn't just that there was the sequence of video, text, problem, but it was actually, it wasn't even getting the problem right. It was actually tackling the problem. So that highly successful learners, they divided the group up into highly successful and less successful, actually just trying the problems and trying them again and again if you didn't get them right, got some learning going that was different, and achieved, the highly successful learners attempted more problems. And then they also looked at people who didn't succeed and went back, and they found that they could do well by going back and going through it again. So I think that what Microsoft got out of it and we got out of it is that you really can teach these complex subjects via MOOCs, and you can teach sequences, and you can get higher completion rates, and you can be more cost effective than the old ways. And I know, you know, in various presentations, people have talked about they're doing this, but what I haven't seen is the results. You know, do we really know that people have learned? Does that certificate matter? And I think that's what companies struggle with. Like, from your research, like, oh, well, you take a MOOC and you get a certificate. Does it really matter? Does it really do anything? How can we be assured of the quality? Now, we have courses from and sequences from MIT and Harvard, and you would think, yes, of course, you took that from them. But this is the evidence that actually people are getting that deep learning. They are completing the courses. They are understanding it. And Microsoft is doing more and more of these research because they believe this can be the way of the future. So, you know, I show this as an example of how we're partnering with companies to improve outcomes and deliver new ways of corporate training and learning that can not only serve the company, but the broader problems that we as a, you know, Earth are facing in terms of just getting more people trained and upskilled and getting the jobs they want to succeed in their careers. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Monika Hamori. I'm a business school professor, and I'm going to talk about whether companies or whether MOOCs can fill the corporate training gap. So we know that formal training is very important in organizations. Yet we also know that the incidence of employees who received formal training from their employees, at least in some countries like the United States, dramatically declined between 2001 and 2009. And for example, in this survey that I'm presenting, I find that actually 34% of our MOOC learners report that they didn't receive any training, any formal training from their employer in the past 12 months. We also know that MOOCs that are, that are cheap and that are actually easy to access, they can be accessed at any time from anywhere, right, may offer corporations a solution. So in this project, I was trying to find out whether employers leverage MOOCs for corporate development. I actually surveyed the learners who took some of our marketing MOOCs, 2,500 learners, and I interviewed 74 of these learners. 1,500 of these learners were employed full-time or part-time, and actually I'm focusing on them in this presentation. So probably what I'm presenting in this bar chart is well known to everyone, and that just shows that the majority of learners who enroll in these MOOCs, and these are marketing MOOCs, actually they do that to improve their performance in their current job or to help their career development in their current organization. So the orange bar shows that 60% of learners actually did the MOOC to improve their job, and 36% said that they want to use the MOOC to help their career in their current organization. So if you add these two columns up, and this is the yellow bar shows that 67% of the respondents said that they either want to improve their job or they want to help their career in the current organization. So close to 70% has an employer-related goal with this MOOC. But then if you compare it to how many of these employed learners actually get support, well, the incidence of support is rather low for these professional MOOCs, and in my survey, 8% of the respondents received time off, another 5% received some sort of a financial support, 4% had their MOOCs in their performance appraisal, and there was another 2% of learners whose companies required them to attend the MOOC. So, and consistent with these quantitative data, one of the most striking things in my interviews was that many of these employee efforts in MOOCs actually went completely unnoticed by employers. So employees were doing something that was relevant to their job and they just didn't communicate about it to their employer. And there were many various reasons why this happened. Some of these reasons were organizational reasons, right? I just didn't tell my employer because the employer wouldn't have cared anyway. They don't invest in training. Some of these reasons were MOOC-related reasons. You know, I can do it, you know, in my free time, and it doesn't cost me much, so I'm just doing it on my own. But most of these reasons actually reflect individual reasons, and they show that many people considered learning and development their own individual responsibility. For example, they said that improving their performance is really not the employer's responsibility, it's their own responsibility. And many of them actually didn't believe in organizational career management. They wanted to manage their own careers, right? They had extremely elaborate and specific career goals, which specific tracks or functions they want to go to, or when those very specific career plans didn't exist, they actually just had the general aim to increase their employability. So who are the organizations, or what type of organizations are the most likely to provide support for MOOCs? Well, one of the conclusions is that size actually doesn't matter. Rather, there is no relationship between size and financial performance. And here on the horizontal axis, you see employers in various size categories, starting from the smallest to the largest employers, those that employ over 10,000 individuals. And on the vertical axis, you have the percentage of learners with those organizational characteristics supported, getting any sort of support for MOOCs. So financial support is not dependent on size. And actually, it is the small-sized organizations that are the most likely to provide time off for MOOCs. So, but there was an even more striking relationship, and that relationship was the training intensity or the training and development focus of the organization and the likelihood of support that these employees are receiving from their employer. And this is what I have charted out on this graph. So on the horizontal axis, you see the number of training hours, and these are formal training hours that these employees received from their employers. And you have those employees who received 0 hours of training, going up to employees who have received a lot of training, 50 hours of training or more in the past years. And I'm mapping out the 3 types of support. And what this graph really shows is that is actually the employers that are training anyway, that are investing the most in training and development, at least in training hours, that are also the most likely to provide the 3 types of support for MOOCs. So these bars are actually increasing as, you know, the formal training hours increase. And I think this is unusual because I think many of us expected that MOOCs will be a great supplement to formal training practices, and the organizations that don't have the resources to invest in formal in-company training will actually be the most likely to ride on the MOOC bandwagon. And this is actually not what is happening. The organizations that didn't invest in training, are not training-oriented, seem to be the least likely to provide any sort of support for these MOOCs. So what happens in organizations when support is provided? The interviews show that even in the organizations that provided any of the 3 types of support, it was by no means an organization-wide initiative. Actually, it was a single individual or a single team, an isolated business unit that received support. For example, this gentleman in Sudan who said, you know, my MOOC is linked to my performance evaluation, but it is not an exercise that is practiced all across the organization. And his experience was actually a usual experience. So isolated individuals in the organization enjoying support. It was also very striking that it was never the human resource management function or the learning and development function that introduced MOOCs to these learners. In many cases, it was the so-called proactive team leaders or unit managers, not with an HR background that called their subordinates' attention to the existence of MOOCs, right? For example, in the case of this IT development guy who says that the MOOC in my organization was completely an accident. About 2-3 years ago, my boss heard about MOOCs by driving, and he just signed up for a data science course to see how it goes. So it's never the HRM person. It's either learning-oriented team leaders, right, or very proactive learning-oriented individuals that have come across MOOCs accidentally, and then they are bringing MOOCs in the organization. Like in this case, this Korean professional who said, so I suggested this course to my boss after finding Coursera, and they accepted that I take the course, and they financially support it. So what are some of the conclusions for this research? Maybe 2 things. One of them is that these MOOC learners show that individuals are taking control of their own development. So they proactively choose, the interviews revealed that they proactively choose MOOCs that meets their self-assigned career goals or actually improves the marketability of their skills. And the second conclusion from my research is that there is unfortunately a lack of organizational response to the entrance of MOOCs into the training marketplace. And by lack of an organizational response, I mean that employers haven't embraced MOOCs as a whole. We cannot talk about an organization-wide institutional initiative. And the adoption of MOOCs is driven by non-organizational channels and not by the human resource management function. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Valli Rajagopal from ACCA. ACCA is the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. So we're very employability focused. What we do is basically prepare people to work in a real environment. Now, just to give some context, ACCA has a mission to be the global leader in the accountancy profession. So we have 600,000 students and members at the moment. We grew really rapidly over the past 10 years. We sort of doubled in size over that time. And we have an ambition to reach 1 million students and members. Now, you might be wondering if the world actually needs that many accountants. Yeah. A lot of our demand is coming from emerging markets. So we're seeing India, China, Russia, Nigeria, Kenya. Those are the kind of countries where we're seeing a lot of growth. And they're countries with a lot of infrastructure problems as well, so in terms of the provision of learning support. ACCA's values, one of the really important ones there is giving people opportunities. So we want to make sure that it's not just people that can afford it that become professionals. So we need to give people who have the intelligence and are willing to work hard the opportunity to enter a professional career. And when we did a survey in 2014, we realized that actually a lot of our students didn't have the access to affordable, high-quality education. Now, obviously 2014, then MOOCs were becoming quite a big thing, and the access that MOOCs can afford, it made it a very natural fit for us to develop courses, develop MOOC courses, and we developed them on the edX platform. So we launched those courses in 2015, so going on for 2 years now, and they've been really successful. We've had about 180,000 students enroll on the courses, and thousands of those students have gone on to take exams and to get that certificate that proves to their future employers that they can actually do this. That's getting students to actually take the exams is really important to us, not just because that's our financial model, but also because unless they actually take the exam, they can't prove what they know. They can't get the benefit in the workplace for having done that learning. So we launched 5 courses. We have 2 free courses, and these are access courses, so for people who don't meet the educational requirements to go into the main qualification. And the other 3 courses are, well, they're SPOCs, really, they're paid courses, $89. And those are the first 3 levels of the professional qualification, so they need to take 14 exams to get the full qualification, and the last 5 of those are at master's level. So this is the foundational piece. It's putting them in good stead to then reach that further objective, or to get a certificate that sort of gives them immediate employment benefits in terms of getting an entry-level accounting job. As you can probably tell from this image from our courses, we're targeting a slightly younger group than the normal MOOC audience. So our target audience is sort of 16 to 25. So we built our courses to be really practical. They learn through scenarios, through case studies, through seeing how these things would be done in the workplace. So, when they do these courses, they're doing the type of activities that they would be doing in a job. That side of things has worked really, really well. We've got a lot of really positive feedback from students that they feel like they're learning something that they can use in their job, or that will help them to get a job. Where we're, I suppose, struggling a little bit more is we're trying to give them the skills they need to operate in the workplace, and part of that is communication. Now, it's really important in terms of articulation for learning. Just in terms of learning, they need to be speaking or to be writing their thoughts and developing those ideas, but also developing those workplace skills. We have, on our courses, we have live tutor sessions. We have lots of discussion forums, and the tutors really do a lot to try and provoke discussions. They do a lot to respond and to try and generate conversation, and it's really difficult, and the students don't really engage on that level. And that's a challenge that we're really trying to overcome. We're wondering why that is. Are they in some way lacking the confidence to engage on the discussion boards and with the tutors? Are they afraid of making mistakes in that environment? Do they feel that it's not safe to make a mistake there? Because if you make a mistake on a discussion forum, it's there forever. When you say something in a classroom, it's gone in 5 minutes. Are they worried about that? And one of the things that we've seen is that rather unexpectedly, we've had our sort of partners, our learning provider partners, who normally teach face-to-face internationally, they've been using our courses in blended learning solutions. And obviously, they don't have to do as much of the face-to-face when they're using our courses. It's a relatively light touch. But they've got really good success rates with that. They've been able to take our courses and offer something that's really affordable, because we've made all the investment in the courses. And they've had massive success in terms of student uptake and student progression. Really importantly, students take the courses, do the exams, and then move on to the next course. And that's been I say, unexpected, but a really good success for us. So, given that we hadn't anticipated that people would be using the courses in these blended learning solutions, we did a little exercise just to understand what they were doing, how they were doing it, and what the challenges were in terms of delivering the edX courses, our MOOC courses, in a blended solution. It's probably no surprise, but one of the challenges was reporting. So when the courses, and we're using the courses in a way that they weren't intended, so it's not a surprise that there are these challenges. But the teachers want to know when their students are not performing well or haven't been accessing the course, so that they can provide the appropriate interventions. And that's not always very, very easy to provide that scaffolding and the information for that scaffolding on the courses. So we're feeding back to edX and trying to improve that. What's been quite interesting for us is that it hasn't just been our learning provider partners that have been using MOOCs in a blended solution, it's also been our employers. Our employer partners have got their staff, and sometimes not financial staff. Quite often we've got support staff being put through our courses. They're struggling a little bit in terms of relating what are more general concepts to their specific workplace. So we're teaching, global concepts, I suppose. We do make it relevant, make it important, but they've got to also apply it to their specific sort of scenarios. And they're struggling a little bit with that, but that's something that we can sort of give them reflection tools, like guided reflection tools, really quite simply, sort of downloadable interactive PDFs. And reflection is, of course, it's incredibly important in terms of developing from novice to expert behavior, which is the kind of behavior, obviously, that we want to encourage, that deep learning and say that expert behavior. So that's something that we're going to be sort of developing in the near future, is just simple guides to reflection. The thing that we hadn't really expected was how traumatic some of our partners would find just doing the admin. We sell maybe like batches of 50 courses to an employer or to a learning provider, and they send them to their students. The students mess them up. They click on the wrong course. The tutor send them the wrong course links. It all gets a bit messy, and they're not used to doing it, and they are having some issues there. So we need to we need to help them out a little bit more there. But overall, I mean, it's been a journey. It's been interesting. And we've had to adapt a lot. What we expected to happen wasn't what actually happened. But that's the thing about a pilot. You've got to be open to things not going your way all the time. So we've sort of made various changes. We're making a sort of more substantial change at this point. But I think that what's really a strength for us in terms of selecting the MOOCs as our mechanism is the community. The MOOC community and the amount of learning and the sharing that goes on in that community, so we can learn from each other. And obviously that's what we're hoping to do next as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much for all your presentations. May I ask you to come to the stage? Okay, we would also like you to participate in this discussion. So we will collect questions from the audience. We will have a microphone that is being passed. Am I right? A second microphone maybe, because one at least we would need here. Ah, it's here. And also you can use the hashtag, and we have a Twitter wall. So if you're shying in front of the microphone, you can just post your question if you want to. Are there any questions?
Hello, my name is Ulrike Wild. I'm from Wageningen University, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name, the lady from Springer.
Bonadei.
Okay, I would have a question for you. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the business models, the diverse, I think, which you are having, and in relation probably to open? I mean, MOOCs in the end have an open word in it and open access. So how does that combine in online as well?
So thank you. You are referring not to the MOOCs for external professional training, right? You are referring more to our cooperation with academies. Okay. Springer is not a platform provider. We are a content provider. So what we do is to support universities, students and authors. We approach authors and invite them to publish textbooks which are focused on their needs. And so their needs are not just those related to their own campus training, but are also more and more often also the needs related to MOOCs, to online courses. So we discuss with them a new approach, a new model, which is not the traditional one, the one that we are used to. And then we cooperate with the universities, both by providing already existing content, as I said, which are available for free for those who are affiliated to licensed universities, but also encouraging other students to access to content at a highly discounted rate. But we also speak about MOOCs with the universities. There are countries where MOOCs are not so well known. Well, in Italy, for instance, we just have 2 universities which run MOOCs. One, and the biggest one, is at the University from Naples, Federico II. The other one is Politecnico of Milano. Bocconi University, which is maybe the most famous Italian university in the world, has just started to run MOOCs. So what we do as publishers is also to teach to our partners, which are new kind of teaching and learning models, such as MOOCs, which are, in my opinion, a new exciting way to do this, to approach teaching and learning.
Hello, my name is Vicky Roy from the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology in Calgary, Canada. I'm a business professor, and we have a division where we work with huge Canadian companies in Western Canada. It's our corporate training, and my questions is for you from edX. We already work with big organizations in Canada, but how we can use edX and make sure we have our brand there to provide corporate training? Do you have something that you offer post-secondary institution who want to have their brand, but it's directly direct to Air Canada, example, or WestJet or Bombardier or other company?
Sorry, maybe I wasn't. Keep the mic for a second.
Yes.
Because I wasn't quite sure of the question. So
we have a corporate, like we offer, like we're a business school. We have like students, we have online courses, and we had our first MOOC that I launched a month ago. But we have a big continuing education content department. We're working in corporate training with big organizations, Canadian organizations mainly, because we are in Canada. So how I can use edX with my corporate clients, but we want them to be trained by us with our brand.
Right, right.
But we need another platform. We're using D2L example.
Yeah, so we do this with many universities and corporations in various ways. So one example with MIT and Boeing and edX, there are multiple ways we work together there. There's a supply chain course we're doing with MIT. I'm just picking MIT because I see someone from MIT here. So we can do custom work with you, and also I think the advantage of perhaps working with someone like us in that way is that we have done this and we have learnings like the Microsoft learning. So you can learn things from others. I'm not going to speak specifically to your clients, but I think that we have ways of doing that. The university brand is always there. The university professors are always part of the program, so there's no sort of loss of branding. The corporate knows who they're getting the program from. We can set up, separate cohorts for different folks. So happy to, talk to you about it afterwards if you'd like.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I would also have a question. We collect the question in a second. Just one question also from my side. We have MOOC providers here. We have universities here. So we actually match the academic and MOOC providers background. Is anyone here from a company background? So actually because I think we're all busy providing MOOCs for companies. We have a really nice didactical designs that leverage MOOCs completion rates. We have corporations being set up with publishing houses. But as you said, companies actually don't know about MOOCs and they have not adequate expectations. So my question is, what can we do to bring MOOCs into the companies and actually transfer learning to the workplace? Do you have any ideas? And then we take your question.
I can give it a start. Thank you, Karina. I exactly wanted to raise the same question. And it's not surprising me, of course, this is a conference for universities also, and we have a lot of MOOC providers here. I think from the side of the universities, the first thing is spread the word. The second thing is, which was also in your presentations, I think universities still need to adapt even more. We even see it in our project where we have academia and industry working together, and those are two different worlds. And I still think there's a huge gap where they need to find together more adequately. And also when we are offering MOOCs to companies, also we need to think how to address companies. The same goes with our MOOC book. We were very enthusiastic. We produced like 400 pages of content. This is far too much. We were so enthusiastic, so we had so much content. But for companies, this is the first barrier they will face when they have a look at our MOOC book. What the hell is going on here? I don't have time to read all those pages. So the second version, 2.0, will be a very condensed version of the first one, and that's not so easy. And I think universities need to change their way of thinking when we want to integrate business more into our educational offers, such as MOOCs.
Well, I work in a company which uses MOOCs also for internal training, and I think that it's quite common for very big international companies. But it's true that many small companies maybe don't even take MOOCs into consideration. They maybe not even take internal training into consideration. So, the word is already spreading around on the social networks, on Twitter's, Facebooks, and so on. Maybe it would be nice to involve the governments. We have seen today that national governments are not yet so involved with MOOCs, but using MOOCs for internal training, starting from employers from the ministry, would be a good sign on how MOOCs can be successfully used for internal training. That's just an idea.
Actually, there are two questions through our Twitter wall that actually match to that question. And I would like to pose it to Monika as the professor for human resource management. So the first one was, how can we convince HR managers to incorporate MOOCs in business training? With the second question, how can managers synchronize employees' working time and training through MOOCs, which I think is a very crucial point, because learning and working never goes together, tends not to go together in companies. So what can actually what's the HR manager's role in this progress?
So maybe one idea from my interviews on synchronizing right working time and training time through MOOCs. So I talked to a team, and the whole team was involved in training via MOOC, but actually the time was not scheduled in the right way. the company provided time off, but they provided 4 hours, half a day off every month. And actually that was not very effective, because if you think about that, this type of time arrangement doesn't match the modular weekly basis of the MOOC. So probably an hour off every week would have worked better. So be careful, you know, with how the MOOC is structured could be one advice there. And the other one is, we have, okay. Yes.
What would direct companies wanting to implement MOOCs? It can truly be a messy process in practice. What would you recommend?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that what has been shown here is that there's a lot of opportunity. Companies don't know about MOOCs, right? And they can be a really good solution, and companies are struggling to train folks. So what we have done is we've set up a corporate advisory board, and we have invited various corporate learning officers, HR officers, heads of engineering, and gotten their input. So we're trying to get as much input from the various stakeholders so that we can make it a less messy process. I won't say it won't be a messy process, because every company has their own kind of way of doing things, but what we're trying to do is get as much information on the different ways that companies are doing things and want help, and use that to inform what we're doing.
I would wonder if it's really a question of getting companies to buy into MOOCs, or getting them to buy into a specific MOOC first as a kind of Trojan horse. We've had quite a lot of success in terms of going to our employers, employer partners, with this as a solution, this specific course, as a solution to sort of avoiding having their staff out of the office. So it's a more flexible way for them to do the learning, and it's more affordable. But I think it's quite difficult to sell the whole concept. But when they've seen one course and how it can help, then they're more likely then to use other courses.
Just in case you're shying to use the hashtag, maybe there are questions in the audience. I see you have a question.
My name is, I got the mic. Am I allowed to speak? Anyway, so my name is Han-Jing Q from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. I'm working with edX, running the very first MicroMasters in International Hospitality Management. Ever since I started this concept, and I think we work with industries very closely, so I got a lot of big companies interested in the MicroMaster, and they started using part of the courses as their executive training programs. So I'm just wondering, what are the different models, different ways of working with different companies from Alex's point of view, so you can share with us? Yeah.
So I think that companies are looking for education and training in different ways, right? So some may, to your point, want one MOOC, right, that just is spot on for them. Others may want a whole series. So, I don't want to repeat myself, but what we're trying to do is really set up the different models that companies want, and help them run pilots and see success, so that they can then build on that. So whether it is setting up a separate cohort in something that's already running, whether it's coupons for a group of people, whether it's running tests with Microsoft to prove success. So I think what we're all seeing here is this is nascent days in the time when companies are turning to MOOCs. So I think that there's a lot of learning to be done in education about what MOOCs can do for companies, and maybe for some the Trojan horse approach works, and for others they're kind of all in. We're working with, for example, IBM, and they're all in with one group, and maybe that's going to spread across other groups. So I'm happy to talk to you more in depth afterwards, but that philosophically, that's how we're approaching it. Yep.
Let's collect questions. Maybe I saw 2 hands going up. Maybe we take your 2 questions and then bring it to the panel, okay?
Yeah. Hi everybody. Well, I'm usually an academic. My name is Andreas Eckert. I come from the German Graduate School of Management Law, but I want you to provide a more practitioner-oriented perspective on this topic. Last year we conducted a MOOC on human resource management in digital age. That means our participants were HR managers from German large-scale and SME companies. And what we found out that several participants from large-scale companies like the automotive industry, for example, they started their own MOOC initiatives right now. So it's not so much about, not so much about the design, not so much about the awareness. It's really, it really took some time before they get aware of the whole topic, and now they're starting it. And in Germany, we're serving digital diffusion HR management since more than a decade. We just recognize that it takes the early innovators to do such kind of initiatives, and then the small and medium-sized companies take the same steps some years afterwards. So I think in the upcoming years, we will see more and more initiatives in corporations or large-scale corporations which use MOOCs in their HR management.
And also the second person?
Hi, mine is just an observation. What I've noticed in Slovenia was that the National Post Office, which is a governmentally owned company, but it's quite profitable and all that. But they've done a MOOC, and they did for their own employees, and after it finished, they didn't know what to do with it, so they just gave it away to the public, which is, I think, a very interesting, case study, I'd say.
So maybe to summon these comments up and also take one more question from the Twitter wall, which is, are European companies willing to collaborate in joint developments of MOOCs for their companies? So that's all questions about how can companies themselves get active. So the question behind is, what is the role of the companies in this process as a stakeholder? What do you think in the panel?
I can try to give an answer to the question raised here, if companies are willing to collaborate in joint development of MOOCs, because this was one of the questions we raised in our interviews, and at least the companies we have interviewed, they were really interested in collaborating because they were a little bit like lost, and they wanted to get support from higher education institutions, how to draw up a curriculum, how to draw up learning goals, learning objectives, outcomes, how to design a course, and how to engage with MOOCs. So at least in our sample, there was high interest in collaboration. And maybe also as MOOC providers or platforms, you have the same experience that companies come to you asking for help, actually.
Well, frankly speaking, some years ago, Elsevier contacted us in order to formulate a sort of joint project, but then it drowned, and no, we have not experienced anything of this kind. And I am not sure that Springer Nature is willing to move to this direction.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just comment and bring up, sorry, again to be repetitive, our corporate advisory board. So that is the very essence of what we're trying to do, is get different companies together, get Microsoft, GE, IBM, others together to collaborate with us, with our university partners, so that really we can come up with a solution that works for everybody. So I have seen that the corporations and the universities are very, very interested in working together to solve these problems that really affect everybody. No? Okay.
Maybe another question that was like in between the lines sometimes. I think you said it with the timing, that learning and working time somehow always is opposing each other. I mean, and how far does we need to change our understanding of learning within companies to be able to actually incorporate MOOCs into the work space? Is there any ideas?
So I would say that it's not working hours per se that interfere, but even more so the workload that employees have. I mean, the big advantage of MOOCs, of course, accessed anytime from anywhere. So MOOCs are probably the training format that poses the most minimum disruption to regular work routines, right? So I think it's really the workload, the heavy workload of professionals rather than working hour regulations that may pose the biggest barriers.
Yeah, one of the things that we found is that when we really tell people that this is going to help them to work more effectively and to sort of save them time, and particularly the employers, if they know that as a result of taking this course that their employees will be able to do the jobs better, then they're very willing to do that. But to be honest, that's taken quite a few years of ACCA working with employers to sort of get that message, and then this is the courses after that. So it is a sort of a long-term project getting that mindset to change.
One observation we did in our interviews was when speaking to the employees, of course, for them it was not the top priority, the workload for the employees, because it's not something they worry too much about. On the other hand, the employees, of course, this was top priority, that they don't have the resources to do the courses, they don't have time within their working time for lifelong learning or continuing education. But maybe connected to that question, which I think is very interesting, this offline versus online learning. And I completely agree. Maybe let's do a follow-up project here. Speak about that later. But most of the human resource managers didn't see a competition between them. They really wanted to see a complementation. So not replacing one thing with the other, but it could be a very suitable tool, for example, to have an online training, and then the follow-up of that online training is done with a MOOC. Also, when you think about learning theories, like this repetition of things, and it very much plays or goes into that line.
On a sort of a slightly different note, not specifically on MOOCs, but when they've done studies on blended learning, comparing just face-to-face blended learning with online courses and pure online, then the blended model tends to be more successful. So, you'd expect something similar perhaps with MOOCs.
Are there any more questions from the audience for now? Okay, there's one more. And there's also another. Let's have this one first.
It's a partly question, partly observation. I was interested in, I worked for a company that trains people for digital skills, and we are B2C, but also B2B. And I was very interested in IE business school observations that companies that didn't train people in traditional ways, they are not likely to train them by digital means. So I would like you to elaborate this on and give me some interpretation. And the comment I would like to offer is why companies don't embrace MOOCs as eagerly as they should. And I think there are two parts to this answer. Many of the learners, of MOOC learners, they actually work for companies. I mean, statistics of MOOC learners show that worldwide their level of education is very high, and they are in full-time employment. So they do it in their own time. Probably their company might or might know to know this. So there are some learners, and actually quite a high percentage of learners who work for companies and take MOOCs. And with respect to companies as such, I think quite often it also has to do with training purchase procedures. They're quite often very complex. There are strict regulations for them to be reimbursed. For example, in some companies, you still require to sign a sheet, a presence sheet, whereas in MOOCs, you cannot really do anything like this. And connection time is not the same criterion. On the whole, it's pointless to provide it. So I think there are quite a lot of regulations on national level in a corporate training and learning and a funding system which prevents companies to embrace it as fully as it is. But I would really like to sort of you to interpret a bit why actually some companies, despite the talk of need for training, still don't do it.
Mm-hmm. So my hunch is, and I cannot really support with data, but probably, so it's not a resource issue, right? Because they are not jumping on pretty much free MOOCs as well, but rather it's a training and development philosophy kind of issue. So the companies that don't provide training, they just don't invest in MOOCs either because they just don't believe in training and development in general. Maybe they don't have the systems to provide employees training and development. you know, and their employees who are not getting this training, probably when they see MOOCs, they are not communicating with the employer. So probably it's the lack of a training and development philosophy or willingness. So that would be my explanation.
Okay, we have time for one more question. I saw you were raising a hand.
But actually, I can only join you. I mean, in the end, true learning is a messy process, and it's not always so formal as we do in normal face-to-face sessions. And sometimes we tend maybe too much as well in the online process to cope this formal process. So whereas I think in having MOOCs or online training or every forms of that, there could be far more chance of applying to the workplace and really making clear how much advantage in this process of learning could be. So the effect could be much higher. And I was triggered by that by Sasha. I mean, if you measure 100% of people who come and they sit in the training and in the end they've done it and companies like it, because then of course you have done your training, but that's a different process to really apply knowledge and go at the workplace.
So maybe as a closing comment, each of you may I ask you to give like one suggestion of what the next step could be? So together we would have already 5. So what should companies do?
That's hard. Companies. I mean, yeah, they should keep going. And I also agree to the statement you had. So I think something will come by itself, but not everything comes by itself. So you need to take a step also by yourself.
Well, I think that we should, as a company, keep on being innovative and open to what the market needs and trying to meet the needs of the market, the requests of the market in the best possible way. So be open, really be open and flexible.
Human resource management professionals should look at what their most talented, learning-oriented, proactive employees are doing in terms of training and development, because probably they would get better ideas than searching for the solutions themselves. So take a look at what they are doing, because in most organizations it is really these employees that are introducing MOOCs to organizations. And if you think about how MOOC providers communicate, they normally communicate to individual learners, and they are offering courses to individual learners. I get at least 3 emails from Coursera every week. But unless you are a learner, you don't get that. And that's very different from how training was done 30 years ago, when most of the training offerings were received by the human resource management professional, right? Now it's the proactive employees that are getting these training offers. So listen to your proactive employees.
Try it, you'll like it, right? So try it, you'll like it. So I think that you know, if companies just try it, they'll see success and they can build on that. They can listen to their proactive employees. I think that there's just, you know, in a hesitancy to dive all the way into the pool. If they just, you know, dip their toe in and try it, they're like, oh, this kind of works. We should do more of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that trying it for the HR directors as well, the HR managers, if they tried one of the courses and saw how easy it was, saw just the variety and the quality of the courses that are there for free, I think that, you know, they'd soon want to change.
I don't have the solution. I'm just here to thank you very much for your presentations, for the discussions, and also thank you to you for your questions.